Politicians rarely talk about what they've learnt. So I'm going to use the brief time that I've got to say what I've learnt in this job over the last year. We need to talk about the dream as well as the nightmare in relation to climate change. It came home to me when a Labour Party member, often sources of great wisdom, said to me as I was probably boring on about the dangers of climate change, which I think are very real and very important. He said, look, Martin Luther King didn't say I have a nightmare, he said I have a dream.
I think we all know as sort of technicians and people that are convinced of climate change and the effects it's going to have, what needs to be done. We need to be asking ourselves what's stopping us from making those changes, and so I think it needs to be addressed, needs to be looked at in a sort of different way. We don't need any more workshops, I don't think, on how to put a wind turbine up or how to have hydropower. We know that all this stuff needs to be part of the mix.
We are actually interested in our future because in the end it is, it affects our lives. It's not necessarily our kids or our grandkids, it's us.
And one of the most exciting things about this conference is that the Environment Agency has invited 5 of us to come here and talk as young people and be youth advocates for what we want to see about our future. And that's a really big step in what we think is the right direction to engaging with young people about coming to solutions and ideas about how we can move forward to have a better, brighter, cleaner future.
The scale of the domestic challenge is even bigger than I expected and realised before I got this job.
Climate change challenges are already apparent on the ground in the Lake District. We've just been in a session talking about flooding, and flooding and a greater intensity and volume of rainfall is already a practical reality for people who live in the Lake District. And getting those communities used to the fact that that has changed, and therefore that we need a change in the way that we manage our land to better absorb that water and to stop it flooding people downstream, is a very important component of our work at the moment.
In this country in particular, I use that as a frame of reference because where I live, I think we do an awful lot unconsciously. We weave in waste through behaviours, learned behaviours that we've practiced for generations, and some of those behaviours are wasteful. Actually, I'll correct myself because my grandparents were incredibly frugal, and I think they learnt that through times of war. Certainly, my generation, we've lost that somehow down the line.
I talked today in relation to the planning reforms about the fact that by 2025, a third of our generating capacity will have to have been built between now and 2025.
Basically, what we've got is an energy hiatus in this country. We've got a massive problem with there not being enough energy going forward for everything that we need to do. And that's ridiculous. So they need to fast track it to actually sort the problem out.
Nuclear may have a part to play. I think it's a debate that's really important to be had amongst a lot of scientists. I still don't fully understand everything about nuclear. I think where they are, being by the sea, that's really problematic. I'm from Suffolk and we've got Sizewell.
When you have to make some of these fundamental changes, it might just be a necessity to have to bypass some of the animosity or some of the sort of almost knee-jerk reactions that you might get locally, but you've still got to deal with it really sensitively. Having said that, I'm not really a supporter of nuclear energy, and I wouldn't exactly be too pleased about one sitting somewhere near Radcliffe-on-Trent and not having had any say in that. So I think they've just got to strike a balance.
I'm certainly not a supporter of nuclear myself, and I think our organisation looks to green, clean technology. The thing with nuclear, it might be low carbon, it might not necessarily emit carbon emissions, but there's a lot of other things to consider, such as radioactive waste and the impact that it's going to have on local communities.
We waste huge amounts of energy in this country, and if we would only concentrate on the energy efficiency imperative, if we would, through our business activities, through our personal activities, through the science of energy, if we would just look at the energy efficiency imperative, we could save huge amounts without leaping to the next, energy production solution. Let's conserve and save what we've got.
When you think about the last year, and if we'd been meeting here a year ago, President Obama would have just been elected, and people would have been saying, well, he's going to worry about healthcare and other things, but he's not going to get to climate change. Actually, he's got a bill through the House of Representatives, and he's determined to try and get one through the Senate. And if he doesn't get it through the Senate, get a real offer from the United States in December at Copenhagen, in my view. We've had a new Japanese government that has really upped its game on what it's offering in terms of Copenhagen. We've had the president of China make the first ever speech by a president of China to the United Nations, essentially changing Chinese domestic policy on climate change, not saying it's the responsibility of developed countries, but saying we share our responsibility and we're going to make our contribution. And I could give you an endless list of other countries that have moved on this.
I did appreciate the way he outlined how much things have changed over the last 12 months, and they certainly have, because we've got Obama, and that's like a dream come true, actually having an American president who is, on message, so to speak. It's also very, very reassuring to have it confirmed that, the Chinese are on side. They are two of the 3 or 4 countries that were, dragging their heels.
There seems to be a sort of understanding that this is a really important issue and that we need to act now. I'm a bit disappointed that they're thinking that we're not going to get there in Copenhagen. So therefore I would really want to make sure that NGOs and the people put the pressure on the governments to make sure that we do achieve as much as possible in Copenhagen later this year.
And I think there is absolutely no need to despair, because I think with the political imagination, with the leadership, and most importantly with the popular pressure, I think we can achieve great outcomes both domestically and in Copenhagen. Thank you very much.